Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our poetry reading tonight at the Letting Library of Milwaukee. We're absolutely delighted that you are here. I want to welcome you. As we can see, fall is here. So it happened maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago when all of a sudden fall was just really here, but it's really here. So thank you for being here, even though it's dark and rainy. I want to welcome you. I also want to welcome those of you that are have logged in on our live stream. So thank you very much for doing that. All of you have other things to do, and you could be spending the time some other time. We're absolutely delighted that you're doing it here with us. We have a great poet tonight who I am going to introduce in just a minute. I'm Tom Hogan, the director of the Milwaukie Poetry Series, and we have with us tonight the Oregon Poet Laureate Emerita, Paul Ann Peterson. Can we welcome Paul Ann? Yay. Thank you very much for being here. We have the past president of the Oregon Poetry Association, Bob Sterry, who is here. And I want to ask, do you want to say a word about the Oregon Poetry Association? Yes. Do you want to go for a second word? Okay. And if you're not, see Bob about it. Yeah. So thank you. Thanks very much for that. I want to make some thanks because there's a lot of people to thank in putting on events like this. First is the city of Milwaukee. We are in our 18th season, and the city of Milwaukee has been supportive of us from the beginning. So we thank them. Secondly, we thank the Letting Library because we're now in the new Letting Library. Jen and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, and she's read here before, but in the Pond House. So we were in the Pond House for many years. The library got built. Okay, it's a new library. It's lovely. We thank the Letting Library and all the people who worked on making it come about so that we do have it. Thirdly, we want to thank the Milwaukie Poetry Series Committee. And because without a group working on this, you don't have an event. And I'm happy that one of our members just came in. So 2 of us are here, plus my lovely wife, Jane, and David Filer, wherever David is. So can we give the committee a hand? And thank you very much. Also, finally, Willamette Falls Media Center and Josh Reynolds, our tech person back here who is doing the live stream. So they are absolutely wonderful. Josh is a magician, and he makes this all go. And then after we get the recording, so as you know, it's going to be on the Letting Library YouTube channel. It'll be available. It should be available in about a week on demand. People can go in and take a look at it. So we are delighted about that. That'd be great to give Josh a hand. He did, yeah. He absolutely deserves it. A couple of things to remember. If you would please silence your telephonic devices, that would be great. I'll say the next reading coming up is Chris Anderson. So Chris Anderson is going to be here the second Wednesday of December, and that will be our December reading. We do have flyers back there on one of the tables. I think they're over here. So there are flyers of our readings. Please pick them up, and if you want to and can put them up somewhere, that's great, because that's what they're for, is to get the word out. We also have some refreshments, so please help yourself with that. And we have a broadside of one of Jen's poems. So if you don't have a copy, Kristen is going to bring you one of the copies that's on yellow paper. So I've been looking forward to this reading. As I said, Jen has read here before. She was here in February 2012, and she was here again in 2017. And those were both in the Pond House. So now we want to welcome her back again. Her third collection of poetry is out, Dear Future. And this was chosen by Felicia Zamora as winner of the Word Works 10th Gate Prize for Mid-Career Poets and was published in May 2024. Natasha Trethaway chose her collection, Threshold, as a winner in the Crab Orchard series in poetry. Her second collection, No Acute Distress, was a Crab Orchard editor's selection. Both were named Oregon Book Award finalists. Oregon Book Award finalists. She is a Chicago native who moved to the West Coast 30 years ago when she was awarded a Wallace Stegner Fellowship and Jones Lectureship in Poetry by Stanford University. For the past 13 years, she's taught in the Oregon State's MFA program. We are delighted to welcome back and have her share her poetry with us tonight, Jennifer Richter. Thank you. Ooh.
I'm so happy to be here. Tom is like the honorary poetry prince of Portland, don't you think? Yes, thank you for having me. I'm really grateful to you, Tom, and to the Milwaukie Poetry Series Committee, who, as Tom mentioned, have invited me to come and read from each of my books, which is sort of astonishing, and that kind of support, community support, feels so lucky, and I'm just so happy that you're all here. As you know, many of you know, it's such a fundamentally solitary thing, this writing life of sitting at your desk by yourself day after day, and part of, maybe my favorite part of having a book is that it brings me back out into the world with you and helps me connect with the people I love. So I'm really grateful that you're here, and I want to start. It's been a rough week. For about 8,000 reasons. And I thought I would start by reading a poem I didn't write but wish I did. It feels like what I've been saying to my students, to my family, is that it feels like a moment more important than ever to connect with our community, with those we love. This is a poem that reminds us of that. It was a poem that was published 2 days before the election, but I think you'll hear, it feels to me as resonant now, post-election, as it was then. You may have seen it. It was posted, it went kind of viral. It's a poem by Allison Luderman, who's a California poet. This is called Holding Vigil. My cousin asks if I can describe this moment, the heaviness of it, like sitting outside the operating room while someone you love is in surgery, and you're on those awful plastic chairs eating flaming Doritos from the vending machine, which is the only thing that seems appealing to you dinner-wise, waiting for the moment when the doctor will come out in her scrubs and face mask, which she'll pull down to tell you whether your beloved will live or not. That's how it feels as the hours tick by, and everyone I care about is texting me with the same cold lump of dread in their throat, asking if I'm okay, telling me how scared they are. I suppose in that way, this is a moment of unity. The fact that we're all waiting in the same hospital corridor for the same patient who's on life support, and we're asking each other, will he wake up? Will she be herself? And we're taking turns holding vigil, as families do, and bringing each other coffee from the cafeteria. And some of us think she's going to make it, while others are already planning what they'll wear to the funeral, which is also what happens at times like these. And I tell my cousin, I don't think I can describe this moment, heavier than plutonium. But on the other hand, in the grand scheme of things, I mean the whole sweep of human history, a soap bubble. Because empires are always rising and falling, and whole civilizations die. They do. They get wiped out. This happens all the time. It's just a shock when it happens to your civilization, your country, when it's someone from your family on the respirator. And I don't ask her how she's sleeping or what she thinks about when she wakes at 3 in the morning, because she's got 2 daughters. And that's the thing. It's not just us older people. Forget about us. We had our day and we burned right through it. Gasoline, fast food, cheap clothing. But right now, I'm talking about the babies, and not just the human ones, but also the turtles and owls and white tigers, the redwoods, the ozone layer, the icebergs, for the love of God. Every single blessed being on the face of this earth is holding its breath in this moment. And if you're asking, can I describe that, cousin? Then I've got to say no. No one could describe it. We all just have to live through it, holding each other's hands. So I'm going to start with a poem for one of these babies that Alison Luderman mentions. Our kids are both grown and have left the house, but I will always think of them as the ones I want to protect and the ones I worry about. This is a poem for our daughter Chloe. And it begins with a dream that she had about me. It's called, Years Ago We Told Her It's Okay to Have Some Things That You Don't Share. Slouching groggy down the stairs, she startles when she sees me. Oh wait, Mama, you were an actual ghost next to the bed last night, like those, what are they called? Holograms? All floaty, but your same robe, same scrunchie, but your hair was actual feathers. Then you just started dissolving. Oh wait, sorry, is this weird for you to hear? And I shake my head, amazed by what she trusts me with. Amazed because I hadn't mentioned the robin that burst from our branches when the tree crew got too close. She vanished with one blue egg in her beak. I'd never seen that. I don't expect to know everything. So I looked online. But the chat said no, they don't do that. It's not in their nature. That couldn't have happened. That never happened. Today, she leaves again for the bedroom she started calling home. I know someday a chat room chainsaw voice may try to silence her. I think she knows that whatever she tells me, I'll say, I believe you. Sweetie, I'll always open my mouth for you. This is another poem about babies and safety and fierce love. It's called Shout Out to the Little Girl Bear Walking Through TSA Security. Holiday weekend line backed way up. Everyone shuffling, yawning, scrolling. Amazing. Not a single person huffs. Not one angles past the mother's repeated apologies or her daughter lumbering toward a teenager in a ripped hoodie stamped, I woke up like this, who's actually crouching down now, saying, hey there, little bear, as the girl rears up with tiny teeth bared and giggling till we're all waving at this surprise solo parade that's headed for the scanner, like my friend who knows very well those private rooms you're hurried to when they find something suspicious. Yesterday, they opened her and kept both of her breasts. She texts, I've tried being fierce, but who do I think I am? Now, the checkpoint agent is asking the snout to the ground girl's name. Suddenly, she jumps up, fists raised and roaring, hey, it's me? See, I'm still me. Amazing how everyone stops texting. I'm on my way. Everyone's nodding. Oh, girl, I've loved you from way back. I talk to my students about I ask them to think about the first poem in a collection as a kind of portal or a doorway, an invitation to a poet's obsessions, voice, concerns. And This wasn't completely clear to me when I was writing this poem, but as I compiled the book, it became very clear that this needed to be the first poem of the collection, and it was introducing to you 3 of the book's obsessions, which are kids, catastrophes, and cats. And this one's called, and it's titled after a viral Twitter thread. It's called Trending Seismologist Explains How to Make an Earthquake Early Warning System with Cats. Lately, I have more cats in my cloud than kids. In real life, 2 kids, no cats. But now, no kids at home, so cats are how we stay in touch. If their phones ring, they huff, "Mom, why are you calling?" But when I text my son a tabby in a taco bow tie, he texts right back, "Baby, a chonky ginger." And I know he's okay. That's a thumbs up for today. Since the kids left, I've been using cats to predict disaster. As the seismologist says, it's tricky. You'd think cats parkouring through kitchens, crashing, trashing everything would mean it's all falling apart. You'd think a cat reeling with cheese stuck to its face might be a cry for help. But when he sends those, I know my son's actually laughing. That day, my daughter had a fever and a French final. I texted, "You're the best," with a mustached munchkin. She sent back a show-posed golden Persian someone had captioned, "Yo, for real, this cat looks like the grandfather of a croissant. How is it only 16th best?" Ha, I thought, okay, she's okay. When they don't respond, I'm suddenly back in a too quiet house with toddlers. I worry if one sends the same meme 2 days in a row. What's so distracting? I worry getting bursts of Norwegian forest cats in the snow from my son. It's tricky. You'd think all those dreamy scenes might mean he'd found a little peace this week, but the last winter he lived at home, it vanished. The neighbor's cat with ears like that slept only on our deck, only ever let my son get close, then one day left, no warning, just didn't come back. That winter, my friend left too. You never know, seismologists agree. Meanwhile, we chase hints of what and when like red laser dots we won't ever pin down. A guy online actually analyzed 1,000 cookie fortunes, found very few use predictive language. Mostly, they offer random observations about you, like my daughter, when I visit her, "Wow, Mom," at my outfit means either the heart-eyed cat emoji or the crying one. Now, my son texts kittens spilled from a takeout box, rice like snow on their noses. My friend's hands on my body used to shake with jolts that rose, he said, from deep beneath his feet. "Okay, you'll be okay," he said. "Anyone can heal anyone." Then pointed to a shadowed corner, sighing, "Oh, look at all their wings." So I squinted like I do at my phone now, at one of the sticky, snarling kittens chewing a fortune. "You are surrounded by angels," it says. "Wow, Mom," they'd say, if my kids saw me always staring at my dark screen like that corner. "Look," I'd say, "I'm okay. Every day, you light it up." This is the gorgeous broadside that you all have, this beautiful yellow poem on the same theme here. This poem is called #MomLife, #mood, #meow. And before I started sending out the manuscript, I shared it with our kids, Luke and Chloe, and gave them veto power over any or all of it. And Luke's reaction was he circled this particular title in the table of contents and texted me saying, "I'm already hooked." #MomLife, #mood, #meow. I worry about my kids finding their people. I've spent hours scrolling through profiles of adoptable cats that answer in first person the shelter's second date hot seat questions. How would you describe yourself? Are you comfortable being alone? How do you feel about kids? I hear my own so clearly. Hi, I'm charmingly chatty, the life of the party, but also a couch cuddler, a super loyal love bug. Hi, I'm perfectly happy on laps and laptops. Mr. Handsome, a real softie. Once I've adjusted, I'll be your trusty sidekick on the road of life. Some cats say, I'm excited to put the past in my rearview mirror. Not sure how my kids would answer, what was your previous home like, and because of that, what do you need now? If I'm their very first home, what does that mean they'll need from their forever people? So many out there waiting, so many bonded pairs. When you realize it's time to put your cats in the care of others, to rehome them, the shelter calls it surrendering. So this, I told Tom I'm very proud of this book. I'm very, I'm deeply proud of it and my family. This is a portrait. I think of this in general as a portrait of the ways that we meaning communities, we meaning families, we meaning individuals, move through in our lives periods of shattering and healing. Part of the hope that I feel in the book is that often that is a cyclical pattern, that we move through things and then something else comes up and we move through it. And I'm hanging on to that vision here post-election week. One of the sort of shatterings that the book focuses on is the devastating effect of living with depression and anxiety. It's a struggle that so many of our students come to my office to talk to me about. It's a struggle that I have felt in my own body, and it's a very recent struggle for our son. And this poem is for him. This is called Everywhere We Go, People Want to Know. Everywhere we go, people want to know how he's doing. And because we don't have a new answer or 2-second true answer we can bear to admit, we mostly don't go anywhere. Mostly, we've been watching the cedar show all week across the street. 3 huge trees, dangling orange men, total chainsaw circus. We used to picnic by any construction site we could find. Crackers, juice boxes, his stuffed animals propped up, facing the scrape, roar, dump, and lurch of dust. Today, a kindergarten class comes to watch. I hear them first chanting over the machinery's racket. We are the geckos, we are the geckos, mighty, mighty geckos, mighty, mighty geckos. He used to love that picture book, Gecko Hero licking dust off its own eyeball. I love their tiny voices shouting mighty, shouting, you can talk yourself into being brave. Just use your words, your outside voice. I've started hearing everything as a message. In the lopped-off trunks, the neighbor's treehouse is a little ark, snagged and dry above the waterline. In bed each night, we clutch each other, steady ourselves on the rocking deck. Below us, our sleepless sun thrashes like an animal. We didn't dream we'd be at sea this long, didn't dream he might always struggle to stay above the dark, dark waves, my heart sinking, my heart racing. I'll always be listening like prey for sounds of what's coming, a warning, a voice. Noah was given years to prepare and exact plans. This number of cubits equals your family will all be fine. But all this morning's headlines offer me is a rule of thumb. If you see a tsunami, it's too late to outrun it. The new siren drills in our town a comfort. Let's practice not panicking. Let's keep looking for signs. The new ones at low points on the coast are blue cartoons, an open-mouthed huge wave and stick figure scrambling away. We used to chant good job at everything he did without our help. First, he learned to cry himself to sleep. We used to follow what the book said. Turns out that works. He's still really good at it. And we're still standing outside his door, listening, silently crying. Some books call his pain a journey he has to take alone. But the chirping geckos, hand in hand on the sidewalk, are counting off by 2s. Noah did what the voice said. Good job, it said. To save them, pair them up. I feel like we've all had to consciously distract ourselves lately, certainly from the pandemic, certainly from politics, and possibly troubles even closer to home. For a while, one of my strategies was watching a live stream of brown bears in Alaska. I recommend it if you haven't watched it. It's actually incredibly dramatic and gripping, but also surprisingly social because, as you may know, YouTube incorporates this chat feature. So, there are thousands of people watching at any given time, and they're all kind of chiming in, talking about what they're watching, but also talking to each other in this chat. So it's a really interesting world out there. And I wrote this poem after spending some time with those bears. It's called Imagine That. I need this plus I'm good at getting this equals I got this. So many people I love don't know what to do. Me neither. So I watched live coverage of a bear catching salmon in Alaska. 2.1K watching too, also commenting. So I know his name is Otis, and this is his spot, his office, someone calls it. Otis scans the surface churn and waits. Surely he's starving. That's 4 in 10 minutes. But he doesn't panic. Go, bear, go, someone says, as Otis pounces in slow-mo. Like a boss, another says. Snorkel, 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 when Otis sinks his snout, then nom, nom, nom to his sparkly, squirming mouthful. A new viewer says, once in a play, my son was called Juicy Salmon Number 2. And the chat erupts with laugh-crying emojis. When my son calls, his cried-out voice sounds underwater. If only he could feel for a while whatever he wants swimming towards him, so much of it that he'd need a break, like our Otis, splayed in the shallows. He just reached out and snagged one. Hi, everybody, someone says. It's so nice knowing people are around. Suddenly, the chat stops scrolling, not sure which yellow face to click. We made a deal. My son can answer me with a single emoji. My question is always, are you still around? He didn't mean to die. My friend's husband left their TV on, like this rushing white water, like late night static also gone, like the sound that quit helping me sleep. It's a struggle just to keep going. I know so many, like my son, feel caught in the jaws of something larger. Another of the kind of cycles of shattering of the book is the COVID pandemic. I was writing this book at that time, and this poem came out of that time. I don't mean to make light of the pandemic at all, but I was interested in finding some humor in the absurdity that we came to live with as normal. This is called Quarantine Telehealth Well Woman Profile. No, I'm not planning any more pregnancies since in dog years I'm 8. In cats, I'm what they call mature and also mostly indoor. So no, I'm not concerned about seasonal allergies or my alcohol consumption. Yes, I use caffeine, though in French, somehow I'm still très fatiguée. No, I haven't left the country recently. In airplanes, I'm most like a malfunctioning pressure release valve. Yes, I do take deep breaths, vitamins, and my frustrations out on others. On the scale of Band-Aid to 911, I'm a 3-star fridge review. Kind of frosty, but fine, could be quieter. Now, if we're talking perishables, I'd say I'm shrink-wrapped meat. I'm getting old. I'm on the edge of going bad. Wait, what even is today's date? This is another pandemic poem. Everyone I know has stories of what was taken away from them during COVID. And for our daughter, that was about 1.5 years of her college experience. It was, of course, devastating to her. But as it was happening, having more time with her during those years at home felt to me, Mom, like a real gift. And this poem came out of that. It's called Gone Viral. First thing every day, my daughter smells her toothpaste. Still cinnamon, still healthy. Every day, my friend's daughter asks, "Is it over now?" Her 4th birthday party was 6 chairs on their driveway, 2 neighbors, 6 masks, and too much wind, so she couldn't hear them sing. And she cried because then her cake didn't taste like anything. Early quarantine TikTok was lousy, with mothers mouthing filthy lyrics and grinning, so thrilled they actually asked us. Of course I said yes, let my daughter dress me, pose me, and bobblehead me. I lip-synced in sunglasses, pulled my pointer finger pistols from the pockets of her hand-me-downs. She'll only wear mom jeans now. I cuff up her old ones, ready to run to her any time, guns blazing, pew, pew, pew. Her clothes on me still hold her shape. We do anything just to keep them close. She leans over to squeal at my screen, a pop-up Etsy ad. Custom breast milk keepsake box. Yeah, right, $60, she laughs, way back to her molars, her head in my lap. This won't last long, my Etsy cart says. Hurry, other people want this too. This next poem I wrote after reading, and I mean, it's been in the news, so you may have heard this too. A Vermeer painting, have you read about this, that they recently restored? The painting is called Girl Reading a Letter at an Open Window. And there's a girl at an open window reading, and behind her, this big blank wall like this. And the conservator found, in the process of restoring it, hidden under a layer of paint, a huge, giant figure of Cupid, the god of love. Whereas we had thought for all this time it was a blank wall behind her. And I was very interested in that, and where Cupid might be lurking, where we don't always know. This is a poem that it's about the early mistakes that I made in relationships and realizing that my daughter would have to learn those lessons herself. This is called Under the Surface. I want to be remembered most for making our daughter and son. They're masterpieces we've been admiring in our home for years. The diffused glow of their curls, their cheeks radiant as Vermeer's girl reading a window-lit letter, like ours on her illuminated screen. Same indecipherable expression, both girls scanning for words they want from anyone not their mom, hovering right there. Cupid's got her back. The winged god staring at me, bow in hand, mask underfoot, a giant, defiant toddler standing on his toys, refusing to give up on me years ago when I loved a boy for sharing his sailboat, his cars, his family's estate, where his groomed poodle healed as he led me down hushed and dustless hallways. Pausing at every painting, she tilted her head to his docent tone. It's true, there was so much I wasn't seeing. Cupid, it's been ages. I'm so glad you're back. My daughter's weeping again. She's me before you aimed me away from a still life as Vermeer's foregrounded fruit, upset like that forever. My God, you know how tough this is to watch. I recognize you're my cue to back out of the picture. I know you know how wrong that feels. So that title, Under the Surface, has a double meaning in the collection. The first poem that I wrote for the book is an erasure of a New Yorker article by Catherine Schultz called The Really Big One, that probably you've heard of, read, received panicked phone calls from East Coast relatives about. If you remember anything actually from that article, there was a FEMA spokesperson. So it predicted massive earthquakes and tsunamis for our area. A FEMA spokesperson in the article said about Oregon in particular, our operating assumption is that everything west of Interstate 5 will be toast. And that's what people, right, I mean, that's obviously inflaming language, and people had a lot to say about that. I felt equally anxious about that and worried about that. What I wanted to do as a writer was immediately respond to that in writing also, but to make space in our collective future for hope. And so I invented a form. It's an erasure poem. So an erasure poem is where you sort of use a text, an existing text, as a word bank, and you kind of make your way through it, and you pull out language to say what you want to say. So you create your own poem through somebody else's text. It can be wonderfully subversive because what you pull out of the text isn't at all meant to be a summary of it. It's meant to respond to it. And so it's kind of like, hey, I used your language, but I'm saying this instead. So I wanted to try that. But what I did was write a reverse erasure. So instead of starting with the first word or the first line of the article, I started at the very last word and worked my way backwards and found a poem weaving my way up to the very end. I wrote it backwards consciously to kind of to create this article created such a force in our communities, and I wanted to create like an equally powerful force that would reverse it, that would reverse the spell of this kind of prediction and tone of the article. The poem sits right in the middle of the collection. I feel like it's its epicenter. And it's in a poem in a number of sections. Each one is titled after a level of the Richter scale. So I'll just read 3 of the sections for you. So this is all language pulled exactly from the article. I didn't change a word. This section is called 5.0 to 5.9 moderate. When, if it happens, a long suspended what was that moment, no early warning, a sudden jolt radiating outward, will be the first sign of love, too. (7.0 to 7.9 major). To a place in a long period of quiet, the Pacific Northwest, remarkably benign and temperate for millennia. This is a toast to the northwest edge of the continent, from California to Canada. Like us, it is young as continent stuff goes, not slipping steadily. That was fun, figuring out how to put the word toast in there, right? Like let's toast rather than that area will be toast. That felt really powerful. This is the last section, 10.0 plus, epic, never been recorded. In the end, what was coming was pretty cool, a real-time revolution proving the planet was, applause, stronger than seismologists had believed. In amazement, lurching, the body itself was making a strange rattling sound on the day when 6.9 billion people, everyone, after all, began to laugh, everyone shaking. So I grew up in Chicago. Earthquakes were not on my radar screen there. I worried a lot about floods. I worried a lot about tornadoes. And it wasn't until I moved to California and the first day I showed up in California and I introduced myself, people would say, oh, like the Richter scale. And I thought, like, okay, yeah, I guess so, yeah. But I really had never thought of that connection in the Midwest. And suddenly, certainly that time, but also in the context of this article, the really big one, that my connection to earthquakes felt more personal, because the devastation that they were talking about, whether it was actual or hypothetical, was being measured by my own name. And so as part of the research for this book, I spent time in the Caltech archives and with the personal papers of Charles Francis Richter, who was the creator of the earthquake magnitude scale. He was delighted to find actually that he wrote poems. Pretty great poems, actually, nature poems. But this next poem comes from my time in the archives. It's called "Over Oregon, the Flight Attendant Asks If I'm Interested in Water." And I knew I was reading a lot of fan mail, a lot of journal entries, and I knew I found the spark of this collection when I read in handwritten fan mail to him, "I was wondering how you feel about your name being associated with a disaster." I was like, yep, there it is. That's the question, that's the book. Okay, here we go. Over Oregon, the flight attendant asks if I'm interested in water, and I nod at his tray of clear cups lined up like the carnival game that won me a fish I named after myself. Oh, like the Richter scale, people say in Oregon, where tsunami trips kids up on spelling tests. Some letters are absurd. They ask the seismologist, which of these states should I move to? But one begins, "You're the only other Francis I know. My teacher told me about you. I hate my name because kids joke about it. I don't even have a middle name I can use. What do your friends call you? Do earthquakes scare you like they do me?" Yes, thanks. I'm very interested in the unlikely event of water landing on our home 30,000 feet below. When I chose to keep this name, disaster hadn't occurred to me. But here, all children drop, cover, hold on. In school, ours raised their hands to my husband's name. On the first day, the teacher never knew who I belonged to. Their hair matches exactly that class goldfish with alarmed eyes. If something happens, how will strangers help me find them? My name will be useless. My name will be news. For years, that third grade fish has been living, dying, getting replaced overnight. Though to the children, it's always Charlie. The seismologist's name ended with him, but his carbon-copied reply calls the boy son and uses the word wonder. When ours was lost in the Children's Museum, he looped back to the tsunami tank to methodically stack blocks under a giant timer counting down to the wave that came so close he couldn't hear me calling. One of the wonderful surprises about writing this book was that the language and terminology and imagery of seismology helped me say lots of things that I wouldn't have known how to say otherwise. I think love poems are maybe the hardest to write for me. I'll speak for myself. And seismology helped me with this one. This one's for my husband, Keith. It's called Love Poem Grounded in the Seismic Communication of Elephants. So, who do we know that's happily married? You ask in bed tonight after two more dear friends split. We're quiet a while, lie baffled by the largest silence of our lives. No more desk chairs rumbling upstairs. No phones thunked to the hardwood at 2 a.m., slipped from our sleeping children's hands. Empty nest, week 1, I needed noise. At the fair, I bought clay elephants. Artist, age 8. Sold only as a pair. Just like ours, I thought. The smaller one who doesn't miss a thing, its ears like 2 full sails. The other's head tipped and listening, its trunk curled into a question. Our son around that age said, elephants can sense what's coming. Asked if we knew. His best friend's dad had just moved out and left their house a wreck. What's coming is sometimes a tsunami, sometimes the beloved mate's vibration. Nights now, when we touch and shudder, we let our echoes stampede every room. This gray clay couple grown to look alike. Of course they're not the kids. Same flat feet as ours, same wrinkly skin, all ears, except our future comes as a constant surprise. Who knew? The elephants' bones conduct the music when they listen. The earth's movement trembles in their toenails, then pulses up their skeleton's vast map to the inner ear, which recognizes the low frequency of natural disaster or lasting love. Okay, and I'll end this little portion with one more poem. This, fueling this whole book is the belief that love, in the face of small and large-scale disasters, is perhaps the one equal but opposite force we can call upon to settle us and save us. This poem is titled after a seismic surface wave, and the epigraph is from Wikipedia. Large earthquakes may generate love waves that travel around the earth several times before dissipating. Love wave. Goodbyes and goodnights were rough, and preschool drop-offs a total disaster. So we tried a surprise, his own camera, to aim at me every time I drove away. He'd click the red button, then press his slick cheek to the window and wave. I was a mess too until his daily report said basically, "Mom, that's not helping." He got checks by, "I made good choices." He made their meltdown list just once, left his camera at home, and after that, each bedtime, he'd cinch it to his wrist. I demonstrated problem-solving skills, said his form called, "Hooray, it's today." Every night he'd ask, "Is tomorrow the weekend yet?" He'd ask for time travel stories, just future ones. He just needed help picturing where we were going. He'd always ask, "Mom, when you end it, can you end it happy, all of us okay? And can you also please make it true?" Okay, I think it's Q&A time. Okay. Thank you. Should I stay up here?
Sure. Q&A time.
Okay, happy
So-
to answer anything you like.
Well, I'd like to ask you about talking a little more about the book
Great.
that you read from. How did you approach it? Did you write the poems and then get the idea for the book? Did you have the idea for the book and you wrote poems that you thought would fit in it?
For
Go ahead.
me, the former. I mean, I think you can tell, right? You read my books and you know a whole lot about me. I'm not interested in putting a wall between myself and you, reader. I'm interested in inviting you in, and I feel like maybe you recognize if I share this about myself, that maybe there'll be this kind of reciprocal feeling of you feel like, okay, I'll step a little closer to you, right? We kind of meet in the middle, and so I write a lot about my own life, and they're not all poems for the public, you know. Plenty are for me and my family, but I was writing poems about my life, and then when the New Yorker article came out, that asked me to see what I was doing with a new frame. And so because what I felt, you know, these situations we were navigating at times felt in our own family as dire as this prediction for the Pacific Northwest, right? So it felt like, and some of those poems I didn't even know how to write because they felt so kind of large and unruly. And so that article and my real instant interest in speaking back to it, like I had this kind of like, you know, I have something to say to you. And that led me down the seismology road. And then I started thinking, because the article mentions Richter, Charles Richter, and so that too was put in my mind. And my first thought is, oh, I'm going to interview him, but he died in the 80s, so I couldn't do that. So then I found out that his papers were in Caltech archives and decided to kind of, I also went online and tried to figure out if we were related. And the answer is no, at least like not right. It may be way back in Germany, but that was pretty fun too. I was writing, I'll always be writing about my life, but what happened to show up and give the collection some structure and language was the idea of seismology as introduced to me by the New York Board. Style? Yeah. Yeah, this is a different book for me. A lot of the poems, maybe you can hear, are pretty breathless. They have no punctuation. I mean, they're in lines, but it's one long run-on, and that I didn't consciously set out to do that, but the first poems that I was writing, that they showed up like that, and it's really a reflection of the urgency I was feeling, and also kind of panic at times, and a kind of non-stop feeling of those times where sort of everywhere you look there's something you need to react to, or something that hurts, and so this kind of pile on also, I wrote a couple poems in that form without thinking consciously of it, and then realized, like, oh, of course that, right? Like, of course, like, yeah, like, and they're not all in that, but plenty are, because of the even in the pandemic, this kind of pile on of and not there was no kind of clear beginning and ending of anything, and so like the idea of like starting with a capital letter and putting a period at the end of the line, and like, right, my life didn't feel like that predictable, and so I didn't, the language and the form felt like it needed to kind of reflect my own experience while writing.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Questions?
No.
All right. Another wonderful, it's hi, Christine here in Oregon City. Another wonderful poetry reading by Jennifer. Did you find anything surprising in your research of earthquake Richter?
Yes. Well, the greatest surprise was that he wrote poems and that they were good ones. I was just like sort of, he was a really interesting man. And the other, I mean, not a surprise, but the strange thing that I found, I had never done archival research, and maybe you have, but, and I was only there for a few days, but I only requested to look at his personal papers. I'm sure I can't understand his his seismological papers, right? So I read letters and, like I said, fan mail and journal entries, and he kept all of that stuff. And what became really clear really fast was that he was a real introvert. He did not like the fame that came from this Richter scale term. He felt really conflicted about responding to fan mail, because he sort of felt like, I'm just another guy. Like he didn't socially, he struggled. And what I realized, having spent, say, 3 days in the archives, is that probably, having read what I did, I got to know him much better than anyone knew him while he was alive, right? That was really strange to think that he kept to himself, and he was married, but didn't have children of his own, and was estranged from family, and that felt really strange, and also like a real responsibility for me. Like I needed to do right by him, right? So like what I was writing, I didn't want to like just use what he was doing. I wanted to create something that if he'd been around, he'd be proud to be in, you know, that my work needed to sort of rise to the level of this genius, you know, whether or not he thought himself that. So that added a really interesting. I didn't know what to expect when I showed up at the archives, but it was really fun playing with his. There's a cento in the book, which is a poem where I pull lines from his poems. I don't write any of my own. I just weave lines of his own to make a new poem, and that was really fun. That felt like a kind of homage, like a way I could respect his work and not say anything of mine, but just use his language and put it in the book. So, yeah, thanks, Christine.
Jen's going to end this little poem.
I am. I'm gonna read you the very last poem in the book. This is the title poem.
Great choice.
Okay, good. Thanks. All right, and this one, this poem is even a little bit skinnier and narrower than a lot of the poems in here. And it's shaped like that because the title of the poem is Message in a Bottle, Dear Future. So I imagine it's kind of rolled up and shoved in a bottle, and it feels to me like a kind of message, love letter that I'm throwing out into the world and seeing what comes back. It's called Message in a Bottle, Dear Future. Stunned to still be here after emergency brain surgery, my friend kept weeping, kept palming her chest to feel the rise of her actual breath. Oh, future, maybe by now your earth is fissured as a cortex. Maybe your west coast has become a sedated brain wiped clean by waves. Oh, dear future, if like my friend you wake in a shaken state, may you recover like her, surrounded by beloveds repeating the word fine and experts nodding at the word stable. May it be still too soon to say what's been irretrievably lost. May your memories resurface like hers, just the sunny ones floating back so far. Dear future, how are you? I seriously think about you all the time. Thank you. This is important. My son made these temporary tattoos. Look at it. So it's a beautiful cover. I just love the cover. And my son made temporary tattoos of them. And take them. They're over there. They're the best thing ever. My grad students walk around with them on their cheeks and their foreheads. Yes, there's postcards and tattoos, so help yourself.
So, books over here, some refreshments. If you want to take some with you, please do that. That's what they're for. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for logging in. Another hand for Jen.